The story begins at a school welcoming the start of a new academic year. Among all the students, there's one girl who stands out. Her name is Komi Shouko. With her beautiful and elegant appearance, she captures everyone's attention the moment she walks by. Unlike Komi, Tadano Hitohito just an ordinary student who's never really achieved anything in life. One day, while putting his shoes in his locker, Tadano runs into Komi, the girl everyone's been talking about. But to his surprise, despite her graceful look, Komi acts cold. She stares at Tadano with a blank expression and walks away without saying a word. Tadano is a peaceful guy who just wants to enjoy a quiet school life without drama. But that seems impossible now, especially since he ends up in the same class as Komi, and even sits next to her. This makes some students jealous, and Tadano quickly becomes a target of their hostility. When class begins, each student introduces themselves one by one. But when it's Komi's turn, instead of speaking, she writes her name on the board. Her unique way of introducing herself makes the whole class admire her even more. During break time, many students gather around her, hoping to get to know her better. Later, while Tadano is dozing off, he's suddenly awakened by Komi's soft voice as she talks to her stuffed toy. Embarrassed, she quickly runs off. That's when Tadano starts connecting the dots and realizes Komi might actually struggle with communication. His guess turns out to be right. Komi begins writing on the chalkboard, telling Tadano about her past. Since she was a child, she's had trouble speaking in front of others. Not because she doesn't want to, but because she gets too nervous. Most people who try to approach her either faint or get overwhelmed, and because of that, Komi started to believe that everyone hated her. But deep down, all she ever wanted was to make friends and escape the loneliness she's always felt. At the end of her message, Komi writes an apology to Tadano and asks him to forget everything she just shared. Looking sad, she erases the board and quietly walks away. Moved by her feelings, Tadano offers to communicate through writing. For the first time, Komi is able to have a real conversation with someone, just like she's always wished for. They write back and forth, talking about different things, and without even realizing it, they start getting closer. During that conversation, Komi shares her biggest dream, to make 100 friends. Tadano smiles and promises to be her first friend, and to help her find the other 99. Hearing this, Komi blushes and walks away happily. For those who struggle with communication, speaking can be incredibly difficult, especially when it comes to building relationships. But what we must remember is, just because someone doesn't speak well, doesn't mean they don't want to connect. The next day, before class starts, Tadano realizes that his mission might be easier than he thought. After all, Komi is already popular on her first day. So he approaches a group of girls and tries to explain Komi's communication struggles. But instead of understanding, a girl named Yamai insults Tadano and tells him not to act close to Komi. This makes Tadano realize his status. He's just a background character. Still, he doesn't give up. He decides to ask for help from his old middle school friend, Najimi. Back in middle school, Najimi wore pants like a typical boy. But now, for some reason, Najimi wears a skirt. Despite this, Najimi is extremely good at socializing. In just 2 minutes, they can make new friends, and even have people develop crushes on them. That's why Tadano thinks Najimi is the perfect person to help Komi make friends. But Najimi says it's impossible. Apparently, they met Komi once back in 2nd grade. Najimi tried to approach Komi cheerfully, but Komi just stared at them with a blank expression like a frog. Since then, Najimi believed Komi was someone hard to approach. Tadano insists that's not true. Komi isn't scary. She just struggles to speak. And if Najimi talks to her directly, they'll understand. Later that day, Najimi invites Komi to walk home together. The whole walk is awkward. No matter how hard Najimi tries to make conversation, Komi says nothing in return. Partway through, they run into two boys from another school, Najimi's old friends. Suddenly, the bigger guy confesses his love to Najimi and asks them out. Najimi declines, saying they're actually a boy. The guy refuses to accept that and starts acting creepy. At that moment, Komi approaches them to return Najimi's house key that had fallen, but the guy thinks Komi is threatening him. Terrified, they both run away from her. After that encounter, Najimi begins to understand Komi's personality better and agrees to be her friend. The next day at school, Najimi shares a tip on how to make friends easily. Komi should start by choosing people who match her personality. Out of everyone they know, Najimi recommends Agari, a shy girl in their class who also struggles with anxiety in front of others. From then on, Komi begins following Agari, trying to find the right moment to introduce herself. But her quiet, constant presence makes Agari feel nervous and uncomfortable. Whether it's in class, the library, or even the bathroom, Agari feels like Komi is always watching her. To clear things up, Tadano explains that Komi simply wants to be friends. But Agari refuses. She says someone ordinary like her isn't worthy of being friends with the school's Madonna. Instead, Agari says she would rather serve Komi than be her equal.
Komi-sanに友達が増えた。
The next day, Komi looks genuinely happy. Her parents just bought her a new phone. She wants to start adding her friends' contacts, and she decides Tadano will be the very first one. Later that night, Komi finds herself feeling bored. She keeps replaying her ringtone again and again, too nervous to actually send a message to anyone. Instead, she decides to practice making a phone call. But by accident, she ends up dialing Tadano's number, which immediately sends her into panic. On the other end, Tadano is also nervous when he realizes it's Komi calling him. He asks her why she called, but Komi, flustered, says it was a mistake and hangs up right away. Meanwhile, Yamai starts feeling jealous of how often Najimi hangs out with Komi. Her obsession with Komi grows stronger. She even pressures Najimi to introduce her to Komi, determined to do whatever it takes just to be close to her. But things take a disturbing turn. Tadano is shown tied up inside Yamai's room. The walls are covered with photos of Komi, revealing just how obsessed Yamai really is. Back at school, Najimi casually invites Komi to hang out at Yamai's house. Even though Tadano is still trapped there, Yamai agrees without hesitation. She doesn't care if her secret is discovered, as long as Komi's scent can stay on her bed. When they arrive, Yamai quickly starts cleaning up her room to avoid suspicion. She hides Tadano in the closet and warns him to stay silent. Realizing his friends are in the room, Tadano tries to signal them by banging his head, but Yamai convinces them the noise is just coming from a neighbor. Soon after, she leaves to get snacks but warns them not to open the closet. Of course, this only makes them more curious. Najimi, who believes rules are meant to be broken, opens it. And that's when Yamai suddenly reappears in the room. At this moment, Yamai's true personality is revealed. She's a full-blown yandere. She admits everything was done for Komi's sake. She believes someone as lowly as Tadano has no right to be Komi's friend. That's why she kidnapped him, to keep Komi's life pure. But Komi doesn't agree with any of it. She tells Yamai that it's her life, and she will decide who gets to be her friend. Then, Komi leaves the house with Tadano, while Najimi stays behind, still processing everything. The next day, Komi pulls Tadano aside to talk about what happened. She feels guilty that Tadano had to go through all that trouble because of her. That's why she suggests ending their friendship, so Tadano can live a peaceful school life without getting dragged into her problems. But Tadano refuses. He says it doesn't matter what happens, he still wants to be her friend. After all, just like Komi wrote the other day, it's his choice to decide who his friends are.
僕の友達は僕が決めるよ。
やっぱ、私は、ただのくんの、友達で、いたいです。
In the middle of all the awkward tension, Yamai suddenly shows up to apologize. Komi forgives her and even opens up a little about the struggles she's been dealing with. Unlike most people who find Komi strange, Yamai thinks she's absolutely adorable. Not long after, Tadano and Najimi get invited to hang out at Komi's house. But once they're inside, things feel extremely awkward. Nobody knows what to say, and they just sit around, glancing at each other in silence. That's when Najimi comes up with a wild idea, saying they need to use the bathroom, but in truth, they're sneaking out to spy on the two from outside the room. Being alone together in Komi's tiny bedroom might just lead to something spicy, and Najimi wants to witness it firsthand. But as time goes on, their little dream never comes true.
君たちさ、なんで気まずくならないの？
お、なじみお腹大丈夫か？
嘘だよ、そんなの。
Later that evening, Tadano and Najimi leave Komi's room as messy as it was when they arrived. But instead of being upset, Komi feels genuinely happy. It's the first time her classmates have ever come over. Even more surprising, she gets a candid photo that Najimi secretly snapped earlier. The next day at school, a mysterious girl is shown observing Komi from afar. Her name is Nakanaka, a hardcore chuuni who believes her right eye holds a dark power. To keep it under control, she asks Komi to make a blood contract with her. For normal people, this is just her weird way of asking to be friends. But Komi doesn't understand and simply stares back. Embarrassed, Nakanaka runs away. Seeing this reminds Najimi of Tadano back in middle school. At that time, Tadano was also a bit of a dreamer. He would imagine himself as a heroic archer searching for love. One day, he decided to confess his feelings to his crush by writing the word love in the middle of the field.
オペレーション L の L は
But when he approached her confidently, she turned him down, saying she disliked guys who lived in their fantasies. That day, Tadano learned something important. Confidence is great, but knowing your limits is even more important. Back at school, during gym class, the students are told to form pairs. Nakanaka wants to team up with Komi, but she's not the only one. Many classmates already beat her to it. Time passes, and everyone finds a partner, except for Nakanaka. She just sits there quietly, thinking she's been left out. That's when Komi suddenly walks up and asks her to be her partner. And that moment becomes the beginning of their friendship. Later that day, Tadano stays late at school. Things get worse when it suddenly starts to rain, and his umbrella was taken by Najimi without him knowing. Luckily, Komi appears and offers to share her umbrella. As they walk home together, Tadano's face turns red. He never imagined being in this kind of situation with the most beautiful girl in school. They eventually take shelter at a convenience store, and that's when Komi reveals something. She knew Tadano's umbrella was gone. She had waited for him on purpose, just so they could walk home together. After a few days, summer break comes to an end. That's when we're introduced to a new character. One of Tadano's classmates. The two of them get along quite well, and Komi starts feeling jealous. She begins following them around to figure out what's really going on. As the class president, Tadano often ends up with a bunch of annoying tasks. Najimi, who's supposed to be the vice president, never helps. Seeing this, Onimine offers to lend a hand. But since Tadano is often around Komi lately, Onimine jokingly wonders if Tadano's a masochist, thinking Komi might be the type to glare at anyone who gets too close. Tadano explains that's not true and says she'd understand if she actually talked to Komi. Right on cue, Komi suddenly shows up. Encouraged by Tadano, Onimine tries to chat with her, but Komi panics and runs away. Later that evening, while Tadano stays behind to finish his work, Onimine offers to help and tells Komi she can go home first. But not long after, Komi comes back with a written message saying she wants to help too. That's when Onimine realizes something important. She quietly leaves the room, thinking, maybe these two aren't just friends. Maybe there's something more between them. Now we see the school is holding a festival. Komi's class sets up a maid cafe. Many people visit their cafe, and one of them is Komi's mother. Tadano, dressed as a waiter, serves Komi's mother. Also, Komi's younger brother, Shosuke, comes to visit the cafe. With his good looks and cool attitude, all the girls admire him. While watching the cafe, Najimi suddenly has a brilliant idea. She asks Komi to walk around to attract more visitors. This starts a snowball effect, and their cafe gets more customers. Najimi also offers special services like taking photos with the maids, dating games, rock, paper, scissors, and even maid punishments for masochists. Even though they make a good profit, Najimi isn't satisfied yet. She plans to offer a special massage service with a high price. But before she can, the teacher catches her and says she will get a proper punishment. After that, Komi and Tadano decide to walk around the festival. They visit different booths and have fun together. Time flies, and soon it's getting dark. Their classmates decide to go karaoke to celebrate the success of their maid cafe. One by one, they sing. When it's Komi's turn, she stays silent until the song ends. Then it's Tadano's turn. He sings his favorite song with lots of passion. Unfortunately, none of his friends pay attention, but when he looks back, he sees Komi has been watching him all along. At the end, Komi is shown writing down the names of her friends. Although there aren't many yet, they are precious friends. Friends who are hard to find, hard to leave, and hard to forget.